Chatter on Books. It's Cliff Notes for book clubs. Why read the book if you can listen to Chatter on Books? I'm Jamie McIntyre, your announcer, but you don't care about that. Here again is your host, Torie Claude.
Okay, everybody, we have a really wonderful author coming up in a few minutes, Bruce Feiler, who I got to meet at the Gold Coast Book Fair back in the middle of May. We're wonderful book fair, not widely attended because of the Long Island Railroad strike, but it was really wonderful. Our friend Steve Israel runs it. But Bruce's book is A Time to Gather, How Ritual Created the World and How It Can Save Us. Really cool, really interesting, very inspiring. I'm not inspired by much. Okay, David, World Cup, you into it? Not into it?
I am. I love the pageantry of the fans as much as watching the games. It's just phenomenal. They're singing the songs. They got their clothes on. It's great.
They're drinking all the beer up in Boston.
That's right. Yes, no, it's been fabulous. Watched Messi score 2 goals today. It was great.
And almost 3.
Almost 3, yep.
Almost 3. Insane. Yeah, I can't really get into the soccer itself, the football itself, because I still resent that there was so much attention given to the men's U.S. team,
That's fair.
even though they never win. Maybe it'll be different this year, and the women do. But I kind of put that aside. The fans are the best. And I was telling Claude, we went to Japan for a week, kind of impromptu. Have you heard about the Japanese fans at the games?
No.
Yes.
So during the game,
no, I don't.
They'll be waving these blue plastic things. You're like, what is that? What are they doing with these blue plastic
things? Is that from the reflecting pool?
Yes, and they're going to be arrested for vandalizing. No, they're plastic bags, and when the game is over, they pick up all their trash.
Oh, I did see that.
They stay in the stands and they walk around. They pick the stuff up. It's amazing.
Yeah. And Jameis Winston helped them after one game. I saw that. That was very good. The quarterback.
And the Japanese players keep the locker room is cleaner when they leave than when they came in.
That's outstanding. Good for them. That's great.
Okay, chances, Claude first, then David, chances of the men even getting into the finals. Are they going to make it past the shootout round, quarterfinals?
I think they can get to the quarterfinals, and it's possible they could sneak their way into the semis. I think that's probably as far as it'll go. The semis would be a great run. That's being hopeful, but quarters, I think they're in for that.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, I would happily take quarterfinals at this point. I think that would be a phenomenal achievement for them. It's really, it gets really hard after that. So anything after that would be insane.
And watching teams like Spain, the first game they played, was it Algeria or something like that? And they tied. And it was just such a wake up call. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they came back and you go, okay, now this is the real team. Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say everybody. Most teams have some incredible striker that can just score like Messi, from anywhere. I'm watching Mbappe play. It's crazy how good he is.
Segue to another sport, and then we'll talk to Maggie and Melissa because it is 5 after. How much do we love Venus and Serena Williams and what they're going to do at Wimbledon?
Great.
It's great. Spectacular.
Yes.
Hi, Maggie. This is where we talk about all sorts of things other than books. So just hang in there for one more minute. I thought it was great when the two of them said they were going to do the doubles, and now Serena's got a wild card to play in the singles, right?
Right. And I think that's very smart of Wimbledon to give her a wild card. I think
smart.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. You have no idea because she hasn't played in a while. I have no idea what
doesn't
level
matter.
Is that. But I know one thing, she's great on grass. So if she's going to be good, that's the surface that you want her playing on because she's really good on grass. So it'll be great to see her again, and hopefully
she'll come out in some great outfit. It's going to be her daughter will be in the daughter will be in the stands. It's going to be great. Yeah, those of us who are a certain age and above just love it when we see the OPs come out and do this.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, enough chatter on sports. Back to chatter on books. Welcome to the show, Maggie Robe. I think I got that right. And Melissa Faliveno. I think I got that right. From North Carolina. They are here to talk about the nomination for the pitch. Maggie, you come to us from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Flyleaf Books, which is a great store. I haven't been there, but our friend Mike Crowley has, and he raves about it. And I've seen lots of pictures and video of it. But tell us a little bit about Flyleaf, and then we'll have you introduce Melissa.
Sure. So Flyleaf Books in Chapel Hill, we've been around for about 16 years. I've been there about 5 years. I'm the events and marketing manager. We are a thriving independent bookstore in an amazing college town in a part of the country where lots of people are moving and have been moving. There was a big bump during the pandemic when a lot of people wanted to kind of move out of cities into smaller towns. And I think Chapel Hill's really benefited from that. We've got great community events. We do all sorts of book clubs and author talks. And we're very lucky to have the University of North Carolina there, and which is where Melissa works. And we get to partner with them quite a lot for programs. And when their amazing authors write books, we get to launch them and that sort of thing. So that's what happened with Melissa's fabulous debut novel, which came out in January. And we were able to do the launch for that. I had a full house. And also I run a new fiction book club at the store, and we picked that to read with our book club this spring. And so, I've been hearing Melissa talk a lot about the book. We've had a lot of conversations about the books. That's been really great. And I think that it's a book that really can inspire a lot of different conversations. And I think it's fascinating. So I'd like to get it out to a larger world, which is why I nominated it.
Excellent. And tell us about Melissa, and then we'll have Melissa talk about herself.
So Melissa is originally from Wisconsin, and then lived in New York for many, many years, and had relocated to UNC for a job a couple years ago. And I believe during the pandemic, she came down, has been settling in to our world. She and I both live in the woods. Like, one great thing about Chapel Hill is that we have a lot of beautiful woods and nature around us. And I think one thing that was pretty spectacular about this novel is its setting and its atmosphere. And so once I started reading it and really got drawn in to the character and this story, it's a Midwestern gothic is how Melissa likes to describe it, about this young woman who sort of leaves her partner behind in New York to go and fix up her family's sort of creepy cabin in the woods, and things quickly go off the rails. And you don't know if it's truly a haunting, if it's a metaphysical haunting, a physical haunting, if it's all mental, if it's all in her head, and it really draws you in and doesn't let you go until the very end. So it was a book that's just great to talk about, great to read. And we really loved it at Flyleaf.
Awesome. Melissa, first of all, congratulations. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. In addition to your writing, you're a teacher, you're a singer, you're a musician. When did the writing bug hit you? Or as we like to say around here, what did you really want to be when you were 5? And probably wasn't a writer.
I think the first thing I wanted to be was an archaeologist, like so many kids who built dinosaur models. But I think the writing thing hit very soon after archaeologist. Jurassic Park was big for me, and still is, honestly. But yeah, I've been writing since I was tiny. I actually recently went home to my parents' house, the house where I grew up in Wisconsin, and found these, what I would call maybe like fan fiction. I called them novels when I was a kid, but they were sort of fan fiction style books that I wrote on paper and then bound. And then I had them all still. My mom had them all still. So I've been doing this for a long time.
What did you write about in those books that you found? What were you writing about?
Oh, it's so embarrassing. There was a series of books that I loved as a kid. They were called Hank the Cowdog.
Never. Oh, okay. Come on, David's nodding his head like you've heard of this.
No, I've never heard of Hank the Cowdog. I just am listening.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up.
Please continue, Melissa. Tell us more about Hank the Cowdog.
I got really excited, David, that you had perhaps heard of Hank the Cowdog.
I have not.
No
I'm
one
sorry.
has. It is a series of like mystery novels about a crime-solving dog who lives on a ranch, and his sort of like nemesis, Pete. I think it's Pete the Barn Cat was the name of the cat. I am much more of a cat person than a dog person, so I wrote this series of tie-in novels about Pete the Barn Cat, who is actually the protagonist in my series. Awesome. And Hank was like the one who was always getting in the way of the cat solving the crime. So Those were my earliest forays.
A lot of celebrities, after they've been celebrities for a while, they do some horrible treacly kids book just because it's easy, and they're all just doing kids book. The morning shows drive me bananas because it's always some celebrity with their kids book, and they're always awful. But these sound great. You should release those.
Maybe I will. Maybe
now that you're a hotshot writer and publishers are fighting over you. You should. Yeah. Okay. So your book is called Hemlock. And Maggie, I appreciate how you described it, but I want to read this blurb. Usually I don't like blurbs, but here's the blurb I read about Hemlock. A woman haunted by a dark inheritance returns to the woods where her mother vanished in this queer gothic novel, A Butch Black Swan. That's a mic drop blurb. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I really have some publicity, some smart people in publishing to thank for that.
Really
blurb.
Smart.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the whole Black Swan thing has so many connotations. But okay, wait, Maggie, you have to go first. So we are the most non-literary. Well, David and Claude know something about books, but I don't. But we're the most non-literary book podcast out there. Midwestern Gothic first. Maggie, you describe it. And I get Midwestern queer Gothic, but Maggie, what's a Midwestern Gothic? What makes it different than a normal Gothic, a regular Gothic?
I think that in this country, you've heard of Southern Gothic. I mean, that's something that's been around and that's very established, historically. You've got Flannery O'Connor and those sorts of dark, when there's a disturbing place, which let's say the South definitely has a very disturbing history, you can get into that sort of thing. England had, Gothics as well. And so I think that what Melissa has explored in this is how other parts of the country, and the Midwest is where she's from, she's explored elements of that which have these sort of dangerous undertones and these sorts of feelings that make you uncomfortable. And so I think really, where this book is set and having this queer character brings up all of this tension and fear that you would get in a creepy Gothic tale. And I think that's why it's described as a Midwestern. That's why we're describing it as Midwestern Gothic.
Got it. Okay. I still think the blurb is fantastic. Okay, Melissa, inspiration. What was the inspiration?
Yeah. So when I was finishing this is my second book. And my first book was an essay collection called Tomboyland. And when I was
Which went gangbusters, right? All sorts of book of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, it did pretty well, which was great considering it came out in 2020. So we didn't know how it would do, but it did pretty well. And so when I was finishing that book, I was living in New York City for a long time and decided it's very much based in Wisconsin, where I was born and raised. And so I decided I wanted to go back to Wisconsin to finish Tomboyland. So I went to the Northwoods, which is like the northernmost point of the state, basically on the border of the UP of Michigan, not far from Canada, very far north. And I stayed in this remote cabin in the middle of the woods, and there was no Wi-Fi, and there was very little cell reception. Notably, I would get a couple bars during the day, and then by like 5 p.m., they would inexplicably go away, and like the little SOS would show up on my phone. And so like I was alone for 5 weeks. I couldn't call anybody. And I'd been growing up going to this place. I knew it very well. It was like I felt very intimately connected to it. I love it up there. It's so beautiful. And it was terrifying. So I was like, at night, I was like, what was that noise? Hearing the crunches and the creaks in the woods. And I'm like, is that a man that's coming to kill me? Is it a monster? Like, what's happening? And so I was writing all day, spent, all day writing, transcribing, finishing my first book. Once in a while, I would drive into the nearest town, which was like 20 minutes away, to use the library's Wi-Fi. But then at night, in the evening, because I had nothing to do, I would sit out on the porch and drink a beer, and I would read. And this deer started showing up at the edge of the woods, and I was feeding the deer, which is illegal.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, never correct. So illegal, but it's something that my parents did before me. And so I was like carrying on this tradition. Like, they would want me to feed the deer like the birds. And the deer kept showing up every night. And, one night I was sitting on the porch and the deer showed up and she looked at me and I looked at her and I said, hello. And I was alone and imagined her speaking back. And that was when the idea for this novel was born. This like woman alone in the woods, and like things start going a little askew and strange things start happening in the woods, and she's going a little crazy. And it's also about inheritance. So I was thinking about these like cycles that we carry on, these things that we carry with us from the people that came before us, and then the things that we choose to let go.
I think the deer should get a blurb on the book jacket. I just played this important role. See, these guys David and Claude have heard me talk about this, but during the pandemic, I got COVID. And so I told the family, we were quarantined with our kids and 5 dogs. And I said, okay, you guys stay in the city. I'll go out to our place where I am now in Sprayville, Virginia, very rural, very remote. And I had Wi-Fi, I had all sorts of things, but in about 2 days, I went bananas being alone. Mm-hmm. David would love this, would absolutely love this. Jason Mott, remember Claude? Jason Mott would absolutely love this, but I went bananas. And a possum appeared. I had never seen a possum out here before. They're nocturnal. They like to stay alone. And he's coming down the hillside in the back of our house. I'd be sitting out in the morning drinking a cup of coffee. And he just appears out of nowhere and kind of looked at me, and I looked at him. And by the second or third day, I was talking to him.
This is what happens.
I'm pretty sure he was talking back. But here's the difference. Your deer inspired a book, but possum inspired nothing other than I'm going bananas here. Absolutely.
I think it happens to more people. I think in isolation, we don't have anyone else to talk to. So why not the animals?
David, your ideal writing experience is a noisy place, right? Aren't you a Starbucks?
Yes, I need sirens and concrete and people, banging on the door. I got to have it.
But maybe to get the great American novel out of you, we got to send you off somewhere in isolation.
No, I'd be terrible out there. That would be terrible. What part of Wisconsin are you from, Melissa?
So I'm originally from a small town outside of Madison, southern part of the state. The town's called Mount Horeb.
Okay, I've heard of it. My wife is from Hartford, so I have heard
amazing.
Wisconsin a lot. So
great.
Yes.
Mount Horeb is known as the troll capital of the world.
There you go.
Also famous for the Mustard Museum, which no longer exists there, but we're still famous for it.
I'm
fantastic.
So where's the Corn Palace? Is that in North Dakota?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've actually never been to the Corn Palace. I think that needs to be on a bucket list for sure. Yeah.
There actually is a book out there about these kind of strange things for states. Kansas had I don't know if they still do it, but the largest ball of twine.
Oh, I've heard of that. Also, I've never seen it.
Okay.
Worth the trip.
Melissa, the book is Hemlock. It sounds great. I told you both in you and Maggie and me emails. I've ordered it. I haven't read it yet, but it sounds great. We're very, very glad you could join us here. Maggie, thank you for participating in the pitch. We'll let you guys know as the summer progresses how things go. But good luck. Good luck with the book.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Maggie, for the nomination. Yeah. Thank you all for the delightful conversation.
Yeah, we know how busy independent bookstore people are. One-arm paper hangers, but Maggie, thank you for stepping up. It was great. And thank you, Mike Crowley, for making this happen.
I know Mike, by the way.
How do you know Mike?
He's a friend of mine. We taught together first at a VCFA, a low residency writing program, and then at Denison University, where he still is.
This is like, okay, we got to let you guys go. Have you heard about this Welsh guy who does the radio show and the podcast? It's kind of 6 degrees of separation. You've got to look it up. So it's this guy, and he's become famous, but it gets harder and harder. He's on this radio show, and people will call in, and he'll start asking them questions. And in under 60 seconds, he can find some connection where they both know somebody.
Wild.
It's insane.
Mike and I are we are,
there you go.
We are directly connected.
We love Mike Crowley. All right, you two. Thanks so much. Great to see you.
Thank you all so much.
See you soon. Take care. Bruce Feiler, how are you, my friend?
How are you, Torie? So great to be with you. You're such a prose pro. I'm so enthralled by
you
how
do
you
something 10,000 times, Bruce. This is what happens.
What'd you say?
I said you do something 10,000 times, Okay, Bruce, welcome officially to Chatter on Books. You do not know Claude and David because they could not make it to New York for the Gold Coast Book Fair, as you and I did, and Isaac Fitzgerald, the great guy.
Because normally you don't travel without them. Is that what I gather?
We go in a pack, but it was the day after the Gaithersburg Book Festival. So it was a little fun to make. And David was at his son's graduation, so it was a busy weekend. But I don't know about you. It was a wonderful book fair up there. They put so much work into it. It's very different than the Gaithersburg Book Festival, which is all in one place, which is great. But Oyster Bay is this adorable town, and they picked all these great bars and restaurants as the venues. We had the Oyster Bay Brewing Company or Brewery. We had a great
definitely
venue.
a brewery. So yes.
Yeah, it was definitely a brewery. And they were just prepared for tens of thousands of people. And the Long Island Railroad strike occurred the day before. And a sprinkling of people and dogs.
And they were prepared for C-SPAN. I mean, that was the other thing that they were prepared for.
Yeah, but nobody could get there. It was tough. But you and Isaac took off right away. I've done
a lot of these book fairs, right? And we just had great chemistry, and it was fun. Your magic hands.
It was fun. Well, thank you for joining us to talk about A Time to Gather, a really, really fabulous book. And Bruce, since then, which was the middle of May, I have reread it. But you're going to have to bear with me and go through some of the things we talked about there in the brewing company a few weeks back with the backstory. You are a writer, a traveler, a speaker, a dad, a one-time clown.
A one-time
Just
clown.
so great, a one-time clown. It's almost better being a
really isn't really one-time clown. You know, once a clown, always a clown.
It's like the Marines. It's like the Marines. But I was also reading something the other day, your TED Talks, millions of people have watched your TED Talks, but I did not know this the last time you and I met. If you're a fellow at the Stanford Computational Psychology and Wellbeing Lab, where they are writing an AI large language model on your work. What the heck does that mean?
That's a very good question. Thank you very much. Nice to be with you. I'm going to start with a stump. The short answer is, as you know, I have spent the last 10 years collecting and analyzing life stories. It's now 500 stories of Americans of all ages, all walks of life. Someone asked me recently to describe what I do to an 8-year-old, and I said, well, my favorite way of describing myself is 3 entirely made-up words, one of which is I'm an experientialist. I like going into the world and having experiences. Number 2, I'm an explainaholic, which is actually an Isaac Asimov made-up word, which is long before men were criticized for this. I like going to places, coming back, and explaining what I saw when I was there. And now I have become, a late in life historian, where I collect people's life stories. And so I've written essentially 3 books that draw on this. Life is in the Transitions, my book, The Search, on how to find meaningful work, and a little bit in A Time to Gather. And I got a call about a year ago from the gentleman, the psychologist who runs this lab at Stanford. And he basically said, the most important thing that you need for building an LLM is a data set. And you have this fascinating, massive data set of all these interviews. So will you give us the interviews and then we have to anonymize them and, pass ethical standards and things like this involved with Stanford. But let us analyze them, see if we can find things that both replicate what you found, but also find things that you were unable to find. And then let's see if we can write an AI model that can help people navigate life transitions.
That's wild.
I slow walked it because I have a theory that phone calls don't change your life, and like emails like this that come out of the blue, I'm generally, don't really trust. But I took a long time and I checked the guys out, and here we go. We'll see what happens.
It's one of the many differences between Bruce and me. One, he's smart. I'm not. I would be so into something like that, and I would go down 18 rabbit holes, and about 8 months later, I'd go, is this for real or not? Like, I would not do the due diligence. So what did they want to do with it? What will they do with this large language model?
Well, they want to do what I do, but with more brain power or more computer power, right? Which is listen for patterns and look for patterns and see what we can find. The goal is to help people live more meaningful lives. And, when I set out on this journey, it's almost exactly 10 years ago now. I think of, look, to take a half step back and maybe even explain the circus thing. Like I had what I now think of. You
spend a lot of time doing that, Bruce, explaining the circus thing.
Pretty much. Although I'm rather proud of it, and I'm happy. I say I can. You and I spent more than 10 minutes ago, not that long ago. I promise I can teach anybody to juggle in 10 minutes. So I'm gonna put a marker down. The next time you and I are together, I'm going to teach you how to juggle. But I had what I now think of at the outset of my life as kind of the classic linear life. Like I figured out what I wanted to do early in my life. I did it for no money. I had some success. I got married and I had children. And that life includes books about Japan, books about country music. I spent a year as a circus clown with the Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus and wrote a book called Under the Big Top about this amazing experience. A decade and a half of traveling back and forth to the Middle East, writing books and making television about the Middle East and religion and contemporary spirituality. That's Walking the Bible and Abraham and all these books. And then my life blew up in my early 40s. First, as you know, I got cancer as a dad of identical twin daughters when they were 3 and very young. I had financial troubles, and then my dad, who was never depressed a minute in his life, got very depressed, tried to take his own life from Parkinson's 6 times in 12 weeks. And I'm a storyteller. Like, I've spent my entire life thinking about how to tell stories, often in contact with some of the oldest and greatest stories ever told. And I couldn't tell my life story. I didn't know how to do it. And I was, afraid and felt shame. And when I did, it turns out that everybody has these moments when their lives get disrupted in some way. And I called my wife after a family reunion where everybody stopped me and tell me all these stories about things that had happened to them. And I said, no one knows how to tell their story anymore. And I want to do something to help. And that's what led to my gathering these stories, listening for patterns, finding out that the big idea that emerged from all those conversations is that the linear life is dead. The nonlinear life that we live now has many more twists and turns, many more life quakes, as I call them, these disruptive life events. And that the way we get through those is transitions, and transitions are a skill, maybe even the essential human skill that we have right now.
Bruce, let me interrupt. I want to go back to when these life quakes started with you, because up until then, again, you were a hotshot young guy. You go to Yale. You could have done the whole Wall Street thing, but you were very clear. No, I want to do these other things. And you go off and write one best-selling book after another. You have these incredible experiences. Life is great. You got a great spouse. You got these great kids. And then all of a sudden, really bad stuff starts happening. Yeah. Was it even more of a shock for you? Because up till then, I'm not saying your life was easy, but up till then, you hadn't experienced these kinds of things.
I think that here's how I process it. I don't think the challenge was that this kind of thing had not happened to me. I think the challenge was, and I think this is the challenge that so many of us face, is that what was happening to me did not correspond to my understanding of how life was supposed to work, right? Mm-hmm. So, the way I think of it now, having thought about it for 10 years, is that we have linear expectations, right? Certainly those of us who are, 50 plus, who grew up in the 20th century, when every great idea was linear. And what do I mean by linear? Like, your life is supposed to follow like one job, one religion, one relationship, one set of beliefs from adolescence to assisted living, right? And every great idea, Piaget, childhood development, Freud, psychosexual development, the 8 stages of moral development from Erickson, the 5 stages of grief, the hero's journey. These are all linear constructs. And this reaches its peak in the 70s when Gail Sheehy writes this book, Passages. 20 million people read. Everybody, all of our mothers or all of ourselves read it. And it said we all did the same thing in our 20s and our 30s. And then we all have a midlife crisis between 39 and 44 and a half. Like, that's how prescriptive it was. Mm-hmm. All of this is bunk. And yet everybody believed that. And so
it's just so much easier. It's just so much easier if people have mapped things out.
Yeah, but think of the pandemic, what everybody listening to us experienced. If you were between 39 and 44 and a half, you were having one of these experiences. But if you were between 62 and 71 and a half, you were doing it. And like, my kids were 14 and a half at the time. These events occur whenever they occur. We know people who lose their parents when they're in their 60s, and we know people who lose their parents before they were born. The same thing with jobs, the same thing with limbs, the same thing with homes, the same thing with their belief in God or whatever it might be, the same thing with their sobriety. And so the way I think of it now is that I was like everybody else. I had linear expectations, but was having a non-linear life. And it's that gap between the expectations we have of the life we're going to live and the life that we're actually living is what leads everybody we know. Like, and my data show that we spend half of our adult lives in transition, but everybody in one way or another is saying, I'm off track, or I'm off kilter, or the life I expected that I was going to lead is not the life that I am leading. The problem is not your life. The problem is the expectations. And
okay,
so
wait,
a lot of my work.
David first, then Claude. Linear life and or nonlinear experiences. Yes, no, maybe.
It's hard to say for me. I mean, everybody's journey is different. And so I would not presume to say that my experience is, somehow unique. I lost my mom when I was 20 years old. Lots of people lose their moms when they're 20 years old. Lots of people lose their moms when they're 10. And to Bruce's point, lots of people lose their moms before they know them. So I guess I never kind of bought into the idea that you're supposed to do this by your time you're 25. You're supposed to do this by the time you're 35. I got married when I was 34. I mean, there was no particular reason. It just seemed like the right time. It just seemed like, well, we love each other. We should probably get married, right? Yeah.
And it didn't seem like the right time up till then. I got married about the same age, which is a little bit late for people of.
Yeah.
So do you think you're better at navigating change because you had that big disruptive event at 20 and then it was more normalized?
No, Bruce, I'd say, this is no secret. My brother died of a heart attack. He died suddenly. My dad died of being 92 years old. He died slowly. They both suck. Okay. They both are terrible. I wouldn't wish either of them on anybody. So no, I didn't deal with it well at all. I just was fortunate that I had people that I could lean on that could help me get through it. And lots of people don't have that luxury. So I'm very grateful to the people that helped me because I don't know how I would have done it without other people propping me up, figuratively.
Propping it up, you're good at seeking help too, David. And you're very, very good friend.
By the way, that's one of the skills of navigating life transition.
Yeah. Okay,
sharing
Claude.
your story, as I call it. Yeah.
So Claude, linear, nonlinear?
Yes, no, definitely nonlinear. I don't want to tag onto the whole death thing too long on the podcast, but I don't make a chatter on death.
We're getting to ritual.
Yeah.
Where we're going, we're getting even more into death.
Chatter on death. We can do it. It's a spinoff.
Yeah, no, my father died 3 months after I turned 12, and I learned at an early age life's not going to be the same, and I have to adjust. I can not, or I can try to navigate through it the best way that I can, and that's what I did. But I will say this though, to a point that Bruce made earlier. I think sometimes, and I think David said the same thing, I can't take for granted that some people wake up and realize, wait a minute, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Do you find that some people actually don't make that transition and they kind of check out and live in la la land, not in reality? The life you think you're living is not the reality of the life that you're living, and you're totally off base with everything that's reality about your life.
I think the answer to that is yes. And I think that, now that I've been at this for 10 years, and as you said, Torie, right? 3 books, 4 TED Talks. I teach a TED class called a TED course called How to Navigate Life Transitions. I would say that the number one reaction to my work, and this is a technical scientific term, is you're giving language to something that I didn't think had a language. My wife likes to say that I have hard knowledge about soft things. Right? Because these are things that we don't talk about and that we often, I have looked hundreds of people in the eyes and listened to stories like David just shared and like you, Claude, just shared. And I have said, what are the top 3, what's the number one emotion that you struggled with, in your life transition? The number one answer, fear. How am I going to get through this, right? How am I going to live without this loved one? What am I going to do without this job that gave me such identity? What am I going to do? Okay, what am I going to do with a child who has an anxiety disorder? Number 2, sadness. I'm sad that I just had this diagnosis as I did, and suddenly I can't walk. I'm sad. I liked my house, and a tornado just took off its roof. Whatever it might be. And number 3, and by the way, I thought this might be gendered, but it was not. Number 3 is shame. I'm ashamed of what I did when I drank too much. I'm ashamed that when someone stops me at the supermarket and says, how are the kids, thinking it's innocuous, I have to feel bad because my kid just lost their job and is struggling to keep their job. So we have a lot of the challenge that we face is when we have these losses, when we have these life quakes, as I call them. And by the way, half of life quakes are involuntary in the sense that something happens to us. but almost half, 43%, are voluntary. Like we choose, we embrace the opportunities of the nonlinear life. We quit the job to start the nonprofit. Okay, we walk away from public service because we want to do something creative or whatever it might be. Involuntary life quake is your spouse cheats on you. Voluntary life quake is you cheat on your spouse, and that's also a lot of people. So I think that. A lot of it is if you go out into the world. I mean, the signature piece of data from this is all in Life is in the Transitions, is that the average length of a life quake is 5 years. So if you go through 3, 4, 5 in a life, as my data show, 4, 5, 6 years, that's 25 years. That's half of your adult life you are spending in life transitions. That means you or someone is going through one now. There are 4 of us in this conversation. That means 2 of us are in a life quake right now. So when you go through the world looking at that, you start to, I can be less afraid, less sad, and less ashamed because the 3 most powerful words in the English language are you're not alone. And you're not alone. Half of the people you meet in the course of your day are going through the same kind of experience.
Okay. Data. I want to stick with data because I want to talk about A Time to Gather. And Bruce, since I first met you, I've now bought and given out about 5 or 6 copies of your book. And people say, well, who is this guy? And I say, it's like Oprah and Dr. Phil and Gandhi rolled up in one, but he uses research and data. And that's the difference. That is the difference. That's one of the reasons these books are so fascinating. I think you called A Time to Gather, the book about ritual, almost a toolkit that people can use. And it's very true. It's very useful, which is one of the most powerful words in my vocabulary. But talk about what got you to writing A Time to Gather. It was a pretty unique time in your life.
So what got me to writing A Time to Gather is I hit a life quake, and I thought, okay, hotshot, you're telling everybody else what to do. Like, you should be prepared for this. What happened was my wife and I, 21 years ago, went from empty nest to full nest in 32 minutes when we became parents of identical twin daughters. And 18 years later, we went from full nest to empty nest in 32 minutes when we dropped them off at different sides of the same college campus. And I walked through our front door, here in Brooklyn, and I had this very precise feeling, which is that I felt homesick in my own home. And I was like, you can't use that word. Like, that's what a 5-year-old feels going to kindergarten, or, a 12-year-old on their first night of sleepaway camp. But it wasn't just my kids. Like, my dad had just died. My mom was aging. My marriage, which had been built around these kids, now needs to be redefined, right? All my friendships need to be remade. And I realized that I had been talking about life quakes, which is what happens to individuals. And I was in a group quake. I was in one of these experiences when the groups that I were in were all destabilized in some ways. And basically, I went looking for, like, how can I connect? We all live in this world, as I don't have to remind everybody here, when we carry the enemy in our pockets. Like, we have all outsourced and abdicated our relationships for our phones. And I went looking for answers, how we connect. And I stumbled into what I think of just on pure story. We got all people who like to tell stories in this conversation. The greatest story I've encountered in nearly 4 decades of doing this professionally. And that is that ritual is one of the few things that we know works. For 300,000 years, this is before we were anatomical humans. Like, whenever a group is in a change, someone comes in like a baby or a wedding, someone leaves like a coming of age or a death, people use rituals to remake ourselves, to remake our groups, until this century when we've turned our backs on them because all of our traditional rituals are in decline, right? No one's having birth rituals. Only half of us are married. Only a third of us are even buried anymore. This was a shocking story to me. Yeah. And yet, at the same time, all of these new rituals, new ways of gathering around the planet are popping up. We are in this renaissance of new ways of gathering as we push back on big tech and digital saturation and loneliness and say, there's going to be a human response. And that human response is, we need to connect with one another and let's find new ways of doing it. And that's the story I wanted to tell. So, 16 countries, 6 continents. I went to these rituals to try to figure out what's going on and how we can all use that to help us reconnect.
One quick commercial break, and then I want to talk about some of the stories in the book, A Time to Gather. But we've talked a lot about independent bookstores and the role they play in communities. And we talked about this before the pandemic. And it was a pushback against technology. People like coming into these stores and being with other people. And they have all these bookstores have multiple book clubs. There's the science book club, there's the fiction book club, there's the historical fiction book club. Flyleaf, North Carolina is one of the ones that has silent book clubs where people come. Yeah. They don't talk about a book. They just sit there and read together, and they might have a cup of coffee afterwards. Pandemic hit, devastating for so many of them. But now, post-pandemic, the ones that survived are doing even better because they give people those human connections, which I think is so wonderful. Okay, 6 continents, 16 countries, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews. And there are so many stories I love from the book, Bruce, but I love Zach. But what are your favorite stories? If you could only tell 1 or 2 from the book, which ones would you share that were most powerful for you?
Well, I'll start with my wife. My wife's favorite story is the Taylor Swift divorce party. And it's a story of a woman who grows up on Long Island, which is where you and I were together a few weeks ago. And her parents were divorced, both sets of grandparents. Her life goal, I'm not going to get divorced. We can imagine what happened. She grows up, she gets married, has 2 kids, she gets divorced. Her husband takes half her belongings. She gives away the other half. She walks home and she said, oh my God, I have no sheets to sleep on. I have no towels to dry myself with. I have a 4-hole toothbrush holder with only 3 toothbrushes. So every time I walk into the bathroom, I think, you loser, you got divorced. I need a registry because all my friends say they want to help, but they're very busy. So she starts the world's first divorce registry, which is to allow people to give her the things that she needs. And she realizes that's not enough. She writes a blog post called The Taylor Swift Divorce Party, because as we know, Taylor Swift became a billionaire talking about her breakups in no small measure, and Shake It Off cupcakes and We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together napkins. And it goes crazy viral. And I say to her, what is going on here? And this is where it gets interesting. She says, I'm a millennial. I grew up. I went into AOL chat rooms. I went into what later became Facebook groups. And we started saying, often anonymously, like, my husband's doing this. Like, am I alone? My husband's doing that. No. I got the same thing too. Like, how do we get through this? Older women joined in and said, you know what? My husband did that. I didn't have the courage to do it. Like, you go, girl. It's like, this is what's interesting about life today, because on the one hand, the technology is pulling us apart because the algorithms are coded to divide us. And yet it can also find ways of connecting us. And what to me is powerful about so many of these new rituals, I mean, what are these new rituals? NICU graduations, right? Soberversaries, cancerversaries, daddy-daughter dances, mom proms, end-of-life doulas, end-of-company doulas. Pet funerals are a $3 billion business in this country.
As it should be, by the way.
As it should. There we go. Right, because
I've devoted more ceremony and ritual
picture with you with my dog
to our pets going over the Rainbow Bridge than some close relatives. Just saying. So
exactly, but why? Because it's a case. And I have this interesting factoid because I wrote this book, as you know, called Secrets of Happy Families. I spent a decade writing this column in the New York Times about families, and I interviewed the editor-in-chief of Reunions magazine, who told me that most reunions start at funerals because people get together and realize they like one another. And why are we waiting for the horrible life circumstance? Let's do it when we don't need to do it. And by the way, that is my definition of a ritual. It's a shared, unnecessary act that makes us feel at home. It's an act because it's a doing. We're not talking here, we're doing. It's shared, it connects us, and there are 500 academic studies, which I cite, as you know. But it's unnecessary. You don't need to get down on one knee to propose. You don't need to wear black to mourn. You don't need to circle the bride 7 times to get married. These unnecessities become necessities because we invest them with collective meaning. We're going to bury our pet. You don't need to have friends over with little bow wow dog, and pictures of you. But it's a way to realize that the dog connects us to our neighbors when we walk them, right? We have these shared experiences, and that's what we're losing. You don't have to go to an independent bookstore. You can go online and get the product cheaper. But independent bookstores are the pride and the heart and the soul of the community because they gather. They listen to what people are doing. They provide ways to meet authors. They provide ways to create and sustain book clubs, which themselves are rituals of connection. I'm not saying we should, I am saying we should do this, but what I'm really saying is people are already doing it and it's happening.
I think they very organically are seeking shared experiences. They really are. Okay, this is unfair, but Claude first, then David. a ritual, something like this in
David,
your life?
we have to talk about sports because I'm sorry to go back to my ancestral knowledge of you as a former Washington, D.C. resident.
Correct.
But every time I do this, someone says to me, is a tailgate, a ritual? Or what about sports rituals? So I would love to know for you,
of course,
how this lands with you.
Of course it's a ritual. Of course it's a ritual. I just spent 2 weeks following a team that suddenly captured the entire city of New York. The entire city.
Keep talking. I got to grab something off the table.
And not out of nowhere, because there's been Knicks fans forever, but their winning brought everybody in the city together in this. And I cover sports for a living, and I am a unabashed fan of my beloved alma mater's basketball team. And I get in the car and I drive 6 hours to go watch them play with other people who do the same thing. It's like we're all going to the Devil's Tower in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And you ask yourself, I ask myself all the time, why do I do this? It's ridiculous.
It's a shared unnecessary act. Now let's talk about the Knicks, because what happened with the Knicks was there were people out there with sage, after they lost game 3, doing the court. And by the way, the same thing happened. I don't know what I can't remember, or if I ever knew what your alma mater is.
Very tiny school, yes.
But Danny Hurley in Connecticut, the same thing. They have these fans doing, bringing these outside rituals into, and by the way, you mentioned, Torie, that I do this thing about, these are the things you need, the 3 things or 5 things you need to make your ritual. One of them is you need a sacred space. And I often say circuses have rings, trials have courtrooms, and games have courts or fields or whatever it is. And there's a kind of boundary, and you go, inside the sacred circle to have it. You're supposed to show sportsmanship. That's what didn't happen at the end of the series. And then you leave and you go, So what is your take on this whole, why is it that men in particular like these sports rituals, even as we say that the women's sports are exploding?
Yeah.
But what's your
take? I want to hear David's answer, but I have a theory. But David, you go first.
The simple answer is that every kid, every boy wants to be Mickey Mantle or Roberto Clemente or, whoever, a great athlete, because that's what's shown to us as something to aspire to. If you work really hard, sports is a meritocracy. So if you work really hard, you can become the best player in the world or the best pitcher in the world. And you can't. 99.999% of people aren't close to being good enough to playing professionally, but attending sports events reminds you of that thought as a kid. Mm-hmm. And so you root for, and if you think about it, it's completely absurd, because every year it's a new team. It's a new group of people wearing the same uniform. You don't know anything about them. You just know that team in red is our team because they said they're our team. And you root for that team, but there's no connection to the players at all.
Okay, but wait, here's my theory. But Claude, you're not off the hook. So we're going to come to you in a second. I think one of the reasons men in particular, and I can say this because I are a girl, men in particular really respond to the rituals of sport is that I think in general, men are a little overwhelmed by all the changes in society, the gender fluidity, everything. And sport has rules and it has constructs and things they can depend upon and, go back to and return to. And I think there is some comfort in that. And I think it's very ritual like, Bruce, which is one of the reasons men in particular like it. Okay,
before we hear,
that makes sense.
Claude, ritual in your life?
I will jump in and I will say one of the things that jumped out at me and what you both said is there is something about sports that is intergenerational, and the history is there, this sort of passing it down, between and among the generations. And there is this moment in my book, as you know, Torie, where I was in Chile going forest bathing, one of the fastest growing ritual activities that began in Japan in the 80s when I was living in Japan, to encourage people to go to nature. And you don't go by yourself, which is perfectly healthy. You go with a group. And when I was doing this, I had this experience where I felt as if I was kind of visited from an ancestor, and ancestry kind of ancestor connection is a big thing that happens in rituals. And I go down this kind of rabbit hole of saying and talking about ritual as a kind of time travel, because from my own wedding, watching my parents give a toast and imagining myself as a child looking at pictures of their wedding and imagining my own future children looking at pictures of our wedding. That you mentioned that, David, and it really jumped out at me of something about, oh, I can remember Mickey Mantle, right, from the 50s and 60s, and I can remember Roberta Clemente, right, or Robinson going back to breaking the color barrier,
right.
And we have this connection in sports to the past. To the decades I suffered as a Braves fan before that they won in the 90s, right? To the decades Georgia was bad to now the University of Georgia is good. That kind of time travel, in my experience, happens once you get in that circle wherever you are, because every wedding is every other wedding, every funeral is every other funeral, every sporting event in some level is every other sporting event.
Yeah. Okay, Claude.
Yeah, so I've got a group of guys that play golf together. And over the last 15 years or so, the group have grown from 3 to about 35 now.
Oh my God.
And usually every now and again, we can get everybody out or we'll take a trip or something like that. But one thing we do anytime that someone's getting married or is about to have a baby, we treat the person to a round. Everybody comes out. Even if you can't play, but you can make it to the dinner after the round, you come out to the dinner. We give very bad advice. We don't bring any gifts, but we bring money or cash out. We'll
Money's good.
Yeah. And so with the wedding, we do that. And then with the babies, we do the same thing. We give really bad dad advice, but it is usually sentimental, but it's almost like our own kind of, bachelor party or baby shower without it being balloons and things like that. But we sit around and by the end of the night, you don't want to take any of the advice. Like everything is trash from here on out, but there's a few nuggets you can pull out. And I mean, just as recent as 6 or 7 months ago, a new guy who joined the group maybe 3 years ago, just got married 6 months ago, and we did it for him. And yeah, it's really cool to.
That is such a. Do you have a name for the group?
No, we don't.
So I mean,
we should call it something though. Maybe we should.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm give it a name, maybe a theme song, maybe a favorite food. I think anything goofy and silly and unnecessary that kind of lets it be a thing. Look, using the LLM of my own mind, having listened to these stories now, and attended rituals all over the planet, what I hear in that story is if someone's going through a difficult time, maybe they're not going to be able to show up as much. When someone has a new baby, maybe they're not going to play as many rounds of golf because they now have new obligations. That effectively what happens in that case is that the group changes, right? There's just very interesting data to support what we all know. When my dad died in his late 80s, 8 years, by the way, after this original series of attempts to take his own life, having been maintained because I sent him an email every Monday morning for 8 years with a question about his life that he answered, and I sent him another one until weeks before he died. He completed a 65,000-word memoir, one question, one answer at a time.
Wow.
Suddenly, the patriarch of this family is gone, and we need to reassign, kind of reconstitute ourselves and kind of distribute the various things that everybody else in the group does to everybody else, or that he did to everybody else in the group. And that's what I hear in this story. Somebody may not come as much. Their place may be missing, right? We want to extend ourselves. We might not see them. It's tending the group, Yeah. Like I'm a group keeper. Like I'm the one who leads the family dinner game and the backyard Olympics and keeps the family stories and runs the family meeting. We all need to be group keepers in this time, because if not, the groups are going to wither. And we're going to just basically outsource everything to technology. And that's even before AI comes.
Yeah. Bruce, have you heard? Oh, I'm terrible. Okay, Claude, maybe you can look this up as I'm talking. It's a show on Broadway. Daniel Radcliffe played the primary role, and now Mariska Hargitay.
Yeah, Every Living.
Have you heard about this?
Thing or something like that?
Something like that. I think you would love it. I haven't been to it, but I've read a ton about it. It's being put on. It has been put on in over 100 different countries. And the essence of the story is this young. It can be the protagonist can be a different age, but with Daniel Radcliffe, he's a young man and he's trying to convince his mother, who is depressed and suicidal, I think, and he's trying to tell her about all the wonderful things that have happened.
Every brilliant thing.
Every brilliant thing. Thank you. It's been put on by different people in over 100 different countries. It's really remarkable. I think you would love it. Okay, Bruce, let's wrap up with this. A Time to Gather. Again, you put enormous amount of work into this, the 6 continents, 16 countries, hundreds of interviews. What did you learn about yourself writing A Time to Gather?
I think what I learned about myself is something that I kept hearing from other people, which is that we all have in us what I call your we-I axis. Like there are two poles to this, where the part of we see ourselves as individuals and we need to focus on ourselves at times, but we also see ourselves as parts of groups. And that, I see this now as a kind of seesaw. And I think that what happened to me in that walking through our front door and realizing that all my relationships needed to be remade in some way, part of that is where I had been, right? With children coming to a certain age, the college application death march, as I call it, like this whole process of needing to focus on our family, and that I needed now to focus on our group, the groups around me. And so I think that what I learned is that I need to be more finely attuned to make sure that in a world that's talking to us as eyes, that we remember that we are we's. I mean, if you go to Instagram, and I did this recently, you look up hashtag self-care, 21 million uses. If you look up hashtag group care, 18. Like we don't even have back to my thing that we talked about earlier with life and the transitions. We don't even have a language for how to make sure that the groups and communities and neighborhoods and families and teams and colleagueships that we're in, we need to focus on that. So I learned that I need to do that. And I think that what I'm hearing from people, the number one thing people say when they read A Time to Gather, now that it's been out in the world, is I want to hold a gathering. My kid was turning 18, or my mother had a milestone birthday, or something was happening with my spouse or in my neighborhood, and I want to mark it. I'm scared. I'm not a ritual designer. And that's where I'm saying, I got you. These are the things you need to do. Here's some great fun stories, but here's a toolkit that you can implement, and you can make your community happier, and everyone in your community happier.
You totally nailed it. What a surprise. But my takeaway from the book, and I've now read it twice, given away 5 or 6 copies. One, it isn't just feel good. There's solid but well-written research in there. It's inspirational, and it's really fun. It's really, really fun. I'm really, really glad you wrote it. You've said, I've read somewhere, Bruce, you said you thought this was maybe your most important book. You still feel that way?
I do, because I think that's why it's called, the subtitle is How Ritual Created the World and How It Can Save Us. Because if loneliness is the problem, ritual is the answer. If division is the problem, ritual is the answer. If polarization is the problem, ritual is the answer. And that's before here comes AI. Like, to me, it's a choice. It's virtual or ritual. It's URL or IRL. And if we choose ritual and we choose connecting in real life, we can make sure that we hold together for whatever's coming our way.
Awesome. I'm very glad you wrote it. I'm very glad that Steve Israel and the gang reached out to me about coming up to Oyster Bay. So I got to meet you and learn about this fabulous book. Hope everybody goes to their favorite independent bookstore or anywhere to buy a copy of it. Claude, David, thank you, my friends.
Torie, before you close,
my internet ears.
If I could just add this one thing, just harkening back to Melissa. So Pete the Barn Cat was Hank the Cowdog's antagonist in the book. Pete the Barn Cat is Sally Mae's pampered, scheming house cat. That's his main ranch rival. Pete the Barn Cat is highly intelligent, constantly tricks Hank, and routinely sets him up to take the fall for disasters. So
awesome.
Sounds fascinating, right?
Great. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bruce, thank you
Torie,
so much.
Claude, David, lovely to meet both of you.
We're back in a couple of weeks. Isaac's coming on in a couple of weeks. Isaac Fitzgerald with American Rambler about the real life Johnny Appleseed, John Chapman. Great book. Also a wonderful guy. But thank you, everybody. And David and Claude, thank you for pitching in, because I almost lost internet and you guys would have had to carry on. So thank you.
It's our job.
Hey, everybody.
Okay,
Take
bye-bye.
care. Bye.